This episode of Another Happy Pod is going to contain spoilers. If you've not experienced the content yourself, please go ahead and do so before coming back and listening to the boys ramble on about it. Thank you very much.
Shut up. Hello and welcome back to Another Happy Pod, the show where we talk about stuff. Sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's a little bit of everything. And we're trying to do it positive, but we don't always succeed, much like our last episode. But anyway, this is a new episode. I'm having my lunch. My name's Nathan, and Lawrence is here also. Hello.
It's a very casual intro. I feel like you're just riding it today. You're like, we got to do this. Let's get it done. You had a week off, but now we're back, and it's like, oh, do we want to be here?
Well, you cancelled last week's episode.
I cancelled last week's episode because I could barely talk. I was very poorly. I've had the awful bug going around that isn't COVID, but feels very much like COVID.
This bug seems like a scam. It just seems like everyone's just faking it.
When you get it, you will become the biggest bitch in history. So I look forward to that day.
Well, I won't.
I bet you will.
I bet I won't. I'm eating
All fine then.
chippies.
You are eating chippies. How is your lunch?
Yeah, it's good. I ordered a KFC, a Zinger bucket meal thing. So
That's boneless, isn't it?
it is boneless. Well, it's popcorn chicken, isn't it?
I don't know. I haven't got a zinger in a while. I'm a boneless man when it comes to KFC. I'm not a big fan of their on the bone chicken.
Yeah, me neither. I
Yeah.
feel like it's so wasteful.
It is, isn't it? And it always looks bigger than it is when you get to the the raw bones of it. You're like, this is a lot more bone than I wanted. And also, there's sometimes you take a bite and there's a bone in it, and you're like, I don't need that there. Not for me.
It's like 80% bone.
Yeah, I'm not for it. And also, they're too big to dunk in your gravy. You get a nice thin strip, plock it straight in your gravy. Bob's your uncle.
Who's getting gravy?
You don't get a KFC gravy.
Yeah, I got some gravy right now. What are you about it?
So what are you on about then?
Don't know. I'm just starting a fight.
You love a fight, don't you? But you're too casual this week to start a fight. You're really riding it. You're like, no fights.
Because we kind of have no idea what we're doing. I mean, we changed the top. Oh no, my KFC! Hold on, it's all gone awry.
You're absolutely right though. We do have no idea what we're doing. We know we've got a topic. We've got a very rough topic. We were going to do Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Then we realised that no one needs to bring more attention to American police. So we steered clear of it. No, that's not true. There's not really a lot to say. It came and it went and it was good. But unless we start talking about every other show on the planet, there's not much to talk about.
It's a pretty good show.
It's a very good show, and I like it. I like how it started. I like how it ended. There you go, podcast done. But today we're going to be talking about. I'm fresh off of a midnight screening last night of No Time to Die, but we're not talking about No Time to Die because Nathan has not had time to die yet. So instead, we're going to be talking about
No Time to Die.
No, you haven't. So instead, we're going to be talking about Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and Spectre. And I get the feeling that we're going to have a tiff because you've been chatting a lot of shit about Skyfall this week.
Yeah. So in the run up to No Time to Die, I figured I would rewatch the Craig Bond movies. But so far I've only seen Skyfall. So this pod's going to be fun.
This is going to be me recapping you, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. You had to remind me the other day of a whole fucking actor who just I completely forgot was in Spectre. Fucking Andrew Scott Moriarty from Sherlock. I just completely had
Relatively,
no memory.
Like secondary antagonist. Like,
Yeah.
if anything, he gets more screen time than the actual antagonist. So, could he be the primary? Who knows? But he's good. He's good in that.
Yeah, I had absolutely no memory of him being in that movie whatsoever. All I remember is the opening Day of the Dead festival sequence, and then the weird brain drilling torture scene, and that's pretty much it. So this will be fun. But Skyfall, I remember because I watched it the other day, and it's still a very mediocre Bond movie.
Oh, okay, we'll get there. Right. What's your relationship to Bond before Casino Royale?
Well, I was like 10. I was
Right.
like 10. I was older than
Yeah,
that.
but like a lot of people had seen them as kids or whatever. Like,
Yeah. Right, so I watched all the Brosnan films as a kid. Excuse me, and they're very bad. they are they're mostly terrible. But yeah, I wasn't exactly thinking critically about these movies when I was a kid. Was I? I was just like,
No, no.
oh, cool spy! Look at that guy. He's got fucking diamonds in his face. The car's going invisible. There's a big laser shooting all the ice. This is cool as fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked the Brosnan Bond movies. I haven't watched them in at least 15, 16 years or something.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what they're like now, but I remember really enjoying them as a kid.
They're not, put it this way, if you watch them when you were like 6 or whatever, right, you're
Yeah.
not going to get any more enjoyment out of them now than you did when you were 6. And that's because they're not geared towards adults. They're like,
No, I get that.
look at this, look at this explosion. It's dumb. My relationship with Bond was non-existent. I'd never seen a Bond film prior to Casino Royale, and
Really?
yeah, and I'm really happy about that. Because I've retroactively watched some, obviously, since just in gaps between Craig Bond films, uh, and I'm not the biggest fan. I think James Bond is just if you've seen a James Bond, you've seen all of the James Bonds, in my opinion, until Craig came along, because he's a spy who gets the girl. There's a reason there's Bond tropes, and it's because every movie hits them, and it's hard not to feel repetitive when like
Yeah.
fucking 20 movies in a row go, I'm Bond, James Bond, shaken not stirred. Aha, one liner at a woman, sleep with woman, woman dies.
Which is why I have certain feelings about your favorite Bond movie.
Yeah, no,
Because I do feel like Casino Royale was a breath of fresh air. Casino Royale was where the franchise like took a little bit of a more serious tone. He didn't necessarily rely on those tropes as much. Like at one point, someone asks him, he orders a vodka martini, and someone asks him shaken or stirred, and he just goes, "Do I look like I give a fuck or whatever?"
yeah,
Because he just doesn't care. He's a spy. Why would he give a fuck about that? He's just
yeah,
here to do a job, fucking kill whoever gets in his way, and whatever. And it's great. It was a much more like grounded approach to it. And then you compare that with Quantum's its own thing, but then by the time you get to Skyfall, it's a couple years down the line or whatever. It's a lot more cartoonish and a lot more. Oh well, this is a Bond movie, isn't it? Because Q's here, he's got all the gadgets now, and will reference older movies, but also kind of not reference them as well because it's a different universe. So yeah, it's all a little bit very much like, look at us, this is Bond, and I get why they did it. It was the 50th anniversary year and stuff, so of course you have to do callbacks and shit.
yeah.
But yeah, it just relied on that a little bit too much for me.
And that's complete. And look, your point is absolutely correct. Like, I, it's very clear that at one point, so they made Casino Royale, which was a subversion of expectation all round. That was everyone was like, holy shit, because it just come off the back of Die Another Day, which everyone hated, um, and that's like Bond at its cheesiest, worst interpretation. Then Casino
Yeah.
Royale comes out, and it's just a deadpan assassin who just doesn't give a shit about anything. Like you say, doesn't do the typical Bond thing. And
I
he's
mean,
just
just
there.
that opening scene we're introduced to him, he's just absolutely just laying into some guy in the
Yeah,
bathroom, as well as just cutting back and forth between that and talking to the other guy in his office, and then he just kills him,
yeah,
getting his first two kills in order to secure the double O rank.
yeah,
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal, and they don't do the traditional. Oh, look at me! I'm wearing a suit. I'm gonna walk into the James Bond theme, and then I'm gonna turn and shoot, and then the screen's going to go red because I'm James Bond and this is a James Bond movie.
yeah,
Straight away, it's telling you this is different because, yeah, he'll turn and shoot, but it's laid into the actual movie itself. It's part of the actual fight. It's not just some weird, I don't know, sequence where Bond's standing in a white room and decides to put on a suit or whatever.
yeah. He's like, I just 1 second, Q. I've just got to go and put on a go get in the white studio. And walk this really far away lens. No, I think because you're absolutely right because I do think there's one moment. There's Casino Royale, then there's Quantum of Solace, and
Yeah.
then after Quantum of Solace, a conversation was clearly had due to the 50th anniversary and due to the negative response to Quantum of Solace, and they went, these either become a franchise now or we probably don't make anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and they very quickly steered away from a more artistic path that they were trying to do with Casino Royale and Quantum, and very quickly went Bond's back, and Q's here, and the gadgets are here, and explosions are here. Now, I think you're absolutely right in terms of the overarching Daniel Craig Bond story suffers because of that, but I
Yeah.
still think Skyfall is an extremely well crafted film. Like I think it's got a lot of nuance and subtlety, and I also think it does a lot of the stuff, a lot of the Bond tropes better than than they were done in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc.
Oh, all of these movies, even Quantum, are miles better than anything that came before. Okay, hot take, but most of the Bond movies are unwatchable. It's always just a very old, drunk, racist man just walking around and having sex with a woman and then doing kung fu grips and chops and barely struggling through a fight. They're very bad. They're very, very bad.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
but for
that's not to say that the stories are terrible. Like there's stuff to
they're
be
kind
said
of
for them.
terrible. They're
Well,
kind of terrible.
yeah.
I think by today's standards, they're just. Then if you didn't watch them at that time or growing up or whatever, then you won't really get much out of them today.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. That's because nostalgia is a key for everything when it comes to dated films. Um, but yeah, the main reason they're unwatchable for me is, like you say, it's badly I watched a couple of the older ones recently for a video I was making, and it was like there's certain scenes where it's just like Bond just kind of open palm kung fu someone, and it looks like he lightly taps them because it's
Yeah,
not a stunt performer because their whole body's in shot. Um, and he just goes ah, and
yeah,
then he like falls over. I'm like, are you joking? You're a
yeah.
henchman.
All movie fight choreography before like oh fuck it, I don't know, like let's say 1999 because of the Matrix. All movie fight choreography before that was fucking awful. It's
Yeah.
all just men just randomly throwing punches that nowhere near connect. It's like as bad as Daredevil season 3. Don't cry too much, Lawrence.
Oh, you're wrong. You're just wrong,
I'm
Nathan.
not though. I'm not. Watch that Kingpin scene again. Yeah, they just clearly do not connect at all, and then it's just men flailing wildly about. All very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair play.
and also, of course, talking about the old Bond movies, there's the infamous scene where is it Sean Connery is just in Asian face, and he's just playing an Asian
Uh,
man for a moment, and then
yeah.
there's the scene. I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's the very famous scene of I think it's like a car chase sequence or something, and the car has to go through like quite a narrow alleyway, so it the car tilts, so it's driving on just two wheels onto like let's say the two right wheels or whatever,
Mm.
but because of the way the movie was filmed, they shot it coming out of the other end before they shot it going in, and it was like months in between those two shots, and it comes out a different side as it goes in, so it's just very clearly
Oh no.
just the wrong way around, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, bad movies.
Casino Royale's your favorite, right?
I think it's easily for me anyway the best of all the Bond movies so far. Like I say, it was a really good breath of fresh air. It took the series in a much more serious light. It gave you a villain who was quite formidable in Mads Mikkelsen. And yeah, like I said, just a lot more grounded, which usually I don't actually like, but when it came to Bond, I don't know, it was good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think because like I say, it dropped a lot of the silliness, and it came in, and it really focused. I think where it succeeds is it focused so heavily on the character of James Bond, because
Yeah,
we're so used to seeing, especially consider it doesn't help that he's been played by like fucking five dudes beforehand or whatever.
yeah.
Um, James Bond is not a code name. James Bond 007 is the code name that's transferable.
I
James
hate
Bond
that
is
fucking
a
theory.
man. Oh, it's so stupid.
I can't
It's just
stand
not.
it.
And I know why the theory exists, because the films do try and interconnect. Like Roger Moore visits the wife, the dead, his dead wife's grave, who was the wife of George Lazenby or something. And I get it. Like they're trying to interconnect them, but at the same time, just pick a path. and stay in it. And I think we're gonna see how that theory holds up in the next Bond film, not No Time to Die, but the one afterward, and just see if they
Oh,
if they go
so see
with that.
whether it'll be a brand new refresh
Yeah, yeah.
or
I mean,
kind of carry on. Like if they carry on with, I guess Rupert Fiennes, not Rupert, is that what was his name?
Ray Fiennes, yeah,
Ray Fiennes. Yeah, if they carry on with Voldemort, then that'll be the question. Because obviously Judi Dench carried over
yeah.
from Pierce Brosnan's era. So
And a lot of those people are still like, there's easily still room. Well, look, without telling you where some people end up, and because I don't want to give anything away, but there's
yeah.
still characters in there that are easily transferable, and you know are going to continue on their careers at MI6. Like,
So no spoilers, but I don't know if you even can answer this. Feel free to just not answer it.
okay,
But can this series progress with a different actor as James Bond in the current continuity?
in in the current, well, that's tricky because it's not like a plot detail or anything, is it? It's just, you are you talking with, so Daniel Craig is obviously leaving
Yes.
the
So
franchise.
could the next James Bond movie with a different actor be playing James Bond? Could it still be set in this continuity? Could it be a sequel to No Time to Die?
Uh, Theoretically, yeah, but
Okay.
it'd be very weird and unusual to have just another guy rock up and be like, "I'm James Bond," and they're like,
Yeah.
"But we all knew a James Bond." He's like, "I'm a different James Bond. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
I think if the series wanted to go balls to the wall, then just fucking continue on a 007 story and give James a break.
They'll
Because
never do that.
I mean, you say that, but yeah.
I don't
Um,
think they will.
I don't know. I think it could be cool. But yeah, so look, Casino Royale drops a lot of subverts a lot of expectations, focuses on a more grounded James Bond, and I think that this is the James Bond origin story, because yes, he's already, not in the traditional sense that he gets his double O, he gets his license to kill, and he goes on his first big mission. That's all subpar. The James Bond origin story is, my man's out here learning very quickly that everything you love in this life, don't bother. This is where
Yeah.
James Bond becomes the cold-hearted killer that he does become.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I think it's really interesting. But then obviously you get into Quantum of Solace, which is not not a good one, not a good film in my opinion.
It's not, but it also had a lot of like issues behind the scenes as well.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think it's necessarily anyone's fault, like involved with the production or anything. I think it's just mainly a result of bad timing, really,
yeah,
because obviously you had to follow up Casino Royale, which in itself was going to be quite difficult. But then doing so in the midst of the infamous writers' strike, which happened, even
yeah.
like fucking Daniel Craig was writing scenes himself, and he was like, "Well, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not a writer at all." So
You can tell
it's
if you rewatch Quantum of Solace. Like,
yeah,
there's some scenes that are incredibly well crafted, and the progression of the scene is there in terms of two actors reaching a crescendo in a scene and reaching a climax, and then like there's you can tell us like a standard screenwriter structure in the
yeah,
script, and then there's the scenes that very clearly have been made up 5 minutes before they were recorded, and it's just everywhere. And like there's it does work in the movie's favor to some extent, because Bond is supposed to be erratic in this movie. Bond is supposed to be extremely fucked off about the death of Vesper in the previous movie, and he's supposed to be acting unpredictably.
yeah.
So I guess that they got lucky in that sense, because this movie could have been a lot worse than it is.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. They clearly tried to do something quite good with it. It fell short of the mark in quite a lot of ways. I think it was probably a mistake to just go for a straight up sequel to Casino Royale as well.
Well,
Um,
it had never been really done before this.
no, I think it had actually on Her Majesty's Secret Service or something like that. The one where his wife dies, I think, is like a continuation of something. I can't remember. I don't know. But yeah, this really like carries on for the most part anyway. And I think it was kind of a mistake if you had some some time to let it breathe, to let Bond be Bond or whatever, and just do a mission or something. I think it could have been more interesting. But again, maybe it's just a result of the writer's strike. Maybe if they had like half a story already baked in with Casino Royale, I guess there's less work to do. So I get it.
It's easier to continue something than it is to make something fresh. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I get it. There's good moments in it. From what I can remember, which I like the car chase. I think that was
brilliant.
quite good. The opening car chase through Italy at the beginning. It's always good to see Aston Martin speeding about. It's good. What else happens in that movie? The scene where Bond goes to the opera and he's taking pictures of all the Quantum guys on his Sony Ericsson Walkman cyber shot. That's a great scene, just for late 2000s product placement.
Do you know one scene that I do unironically absolutely think is brilliant in this? And it's not a joke at all. It's the fact that like Bond comes into his hotel room and M and a bunch of dudes from MI6 are there. And the girl that Bond has just slept with, who was sent by M to be like, hey, office worker, can you go bring Bond home? I'm sure he definitely won't want to sleep with you. It's not like you're attractive and like in your 20s. She goes there, gets seduced by Bond, sleeps with Bond, then Bond comes back and she's dead. And Bond's like, what a surprise, this never happens to me. What the hell? And M's like, yeah, we're gonna take your gun. They do the cop thing. You're on unpaid leave. Give me your badge and your gun.
You're suspended.
Yeah, exactly. And 5 MI6 dudes take him into a lift. And before the lift has even gone down a story, Bond has knocked every single one of them out. And is out of the lift and then just strutting around. Emma's left. Emma's walking downstairs, and Bond just walks up to Em, and Em's like, "What the fuck? Like, like how do you do this?" And then he's like, "I'm gonna go do the mission," and she's like, "Yeah, go on, do the mission." And then she says, "But careful, because more dudes are coming." And he's like, "Oh, who would have bloody called them?" And then he has to dip in and out. And I like it, because it goes a long way, because to show the relationship between M and Bond, which I think is where this series is at its strongest, especially with Judi Dench in the role, because it is he's going to do things his way and she's going to play by the book, but they're both going to understand that each other have to do that and not be wankers to each other about it. Like, they have a different code of ethics and they understand each other's, but they don't agree with each other. Do you know what I mean?
They kind of are wankers to each other, though.
Oh, they're wankers to each other, but in the way that we're wankers to each other. Well, like,
there's clearly more love between me and you than I think there is between Bond and M.
Well, but that's because we're not assassins and in the business of murder.
Well, that's true. I have a feeling that either of those two would let the other die at a moment's notice.
I don't think so. And I think that the next film goes a long way to show how that relationship can be a bit one-sided. But anyway, we're getting ahead of Skyfall. Do you want to go into Skyfall?
Yeah, that's the one I can probably talk most about.
Cool, right. So your thing with Skyfall is that you think it brings back a lot of the stuff that wasn't needed. Like,
I think it's a step in the other direction. Like we was, even with Quantum, we was at least trying to go somewhere new, and do something a little bit different with Bond. But yeah, Skyfall. Yes, it's better than Quantum. It's more interesting story to watch and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But I just think in terms of the overall series direction, it is just a step backwards, really. Again, it was a 50th anniversary year for James Bond, so obviously they wanted to do something big to celebrate it. But I think just the at times relentless fan service moments are just like that scene where they're on the run. It's Bond and M, and they get in the car. The car, fine, whatever. That's not too egregious. I like the car. It's a good car. You want to bring that back? That's never a bad thing for me. Okay. What is a little bit much is like when M is inside and she just starts like mouthing off or whatever, and he flips the fucking thing on the gear stick, and he's like, "Are you gonna complain the whole way?" It's like, "Oh, the jet seat, the ejector seat. Remember that, guys? Remember the ejector seat from the old Bond movies? Look, it's Bond. Do you remember that?"
I think you're right and you're wrong in some respects. I think that
I'm not wrong.
Yeah, you never can be wrong. I think that it is definitely a step in a different direction. I don't think it's a step backwards. It is a clear tonal shift, and for some people that might not be for them. Um, and for me, it's not directly for me because I can't. Basically, I'm saying I didn't like the old Bond movies because they were all the same, but I do like this one because it harkened back to the stuff that I didn't like. It doesn't really make sense, my argument, but I think that it put in enough groundwork for the fan to flesh out Daniel Craig's Bond before it did all the fan servicey stuff. It wasn't Bond from the get go in this movie. He's got 2 movies worth of emotional baggage for us to know him as a character. It's not like it's just straight up Sean Connery and he's like, "Hello, shaken not stirred," straight away. And I'm like, this guy's not even a guy. He's just a walking punchline. Um, so I don't know. I think I like the stuff that it brings back. Like, I think it does. I think it reintroduces the familiar, but in a new way. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I do. I get what you're saying. I don't know. I think what this movie does well. I think the stuff it tries to do with Bond is quite interesting. The idea of him being older and out of touch and not really in the best shape and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of on his last legs, really. I like that. I think that's quite interesting. It doesn't necessarily make sense because by this point, Casino Royale was like what 4 or 5 years ago, and he was a relatively new agent then. So it doesn't make sense that in that amount of time he's suddenly a veteran or whatever.
Well, the life of a double O is very like they say that in Casino Royale. The life expectancy of a double O is very short, and I think that Bond has probably got the furthest because from Casino to Quantum, there's no time whatsoever. And Quantum is 5 years. So it is a bit rushed. But then I think Daniel Craig can sell it because in real life, there's been like almost a decade between that time. And he looks older. He does look visibly older.
He definitely looks older, yeah. But like I'm saying, it doesn't necessarily fit into the actual timeline of events, though. But whatever, I can forgive that. And like I say, I do like that element. It's just all wrapped in this. Again, just at times unnecessary fan service. So you can have Q, you can have this new Q without going, look, it's still Bond. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's still Bond. Do you remember the exploding pen? Do you remember the ejector seat?
Do you not like quippy Bond? Do you not like jokey Bond?
Nah, I don't mind it. I don't mind it if Daniel Craig will do a little quip every now and then. Not necessarily like he'll fucking, I don't know, let's say he'll push someone down an elevator shaft and then he'll be like, "What's your step?" or something like that. I don't need any of that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I don't mind if he'll make like a little, I don't know, offhanded joke or something like that. That's fine. But like I said,
I think it's at its strongest when it's British wit and sarcasm.
Yes, exactly. That's the kind of stuff that I quite like.
Yeah.
But I think what the refresh again from Casino Royale, it was such a different direction. And don't get me wrong, there's jokes and stuff in Casino Royale as well. But I think overall it's presented in a much more serious tone, which this one is just at times a little bit cartoony, I think.
Yeah.
Which is where my issues with it come. And then of course there's the bane of my existence, the tube sequence, which my God.
Yeah, look, you're never gonna get past this. We've spoken about this on the podcast. Nathan has
laws should be put in place that require any movie set within London and there's a depiction of the public transport system to make it as accurate as possible. I don't care if it drags the movie out by another 45 minutes. I want to see an accurate.
Walking up to the tube app and going Q, and he's like Bond, taking the Bakerloo lines.
TFL, excuse me, you haven't tapped in. Can you go through the barrier, please?
Yeah, you actually can't jump those, sir. And Bond's like, Q, patch me through an Oyster card. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
But sliding down the escalators, but suddenly there's those fucking no smoking signs there, so they immediately go flying because they conveniently left those out of the movie.
He's going to slide down the stairs, Nathan. It's James Bond.
Well, he can't because there's obstacles in the way in the real world.
What he should have encountered is 12 angry Londoners going, "You are walking on the wrong fucking side, mate. What the fuck?" There's a strict walking policy anywhere in London that it's the unsaid
There is.
rule, but if you break it, my God, you're in trouble. And
You
I
are
suppose you're
gonna
not in
be
trouble
tough.
actually. You're just going to have lots of dirty, filthy looks at you.
You'll get lots of tuts, lots of head shakes, and just people being very. No one will say anything because it's London, and no
Yeah.
one wants to talk to anyone. But they won't be happy with you, and they'll make you feel bad about it as well.
Yeah.
So
You'll be thinking about that when you're in bed at night, and you're just like,
yeah,
really, really ruin that guy's day.
yeah, that's how the British get you. That's what they do.
But yeah, so look, that aside, I think this is the best looking James Bond film that's ever been made. I think
Big
this.
call.
I mean, it's not though, is it? Like they all look like shit, apart from the Daniel Craig ones because of just time period. There's some cinematic sequences in the Bond films before the Craig, but it's not like it. Look, I respect what Casino Royale was going for. I think the stylized opening of Casino Royale, like the film grain, filthy, disgusting look, is great, and I respect a lot of the muted kind of Casino Royale colors. I think that's cool. I think Quantum of Solace was just the color palette of mud for the majority of the whole movie, which was kind of boring after a while, especially because they put Bond in like 12 different tan suits. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it, he's dirty. Like, it's fine. This, I think, is stunning. And yeah, it falls into the, you can say it's the, yellow smoke always equals good cinematography. And that is a good meme. And it is somewhat true. But it's Roger Deakins and Sam Mendes at the camera and directing chair. And I think they're a really good team. I think they both know what visual style they want, and they achieve it effortlessly. I mean, Roger Deakins is incredible anyway. Like, that man has never DP'd a bad looking movie.
Did they come back for Spectre?
I don't know if Roger Deakins did. I know Sam Mendes did. I'm gonna find out actually, because you may have just debunked my entire thing. No, so he didn't actually do Spectre. Hoyt van Hoytema did.
Okay.
Which actually is interesting because he's just done. I think his most recent film is Tenet, and that looks a lot like Spectre in terms of color palette. Do you know what? There's a weird connection between Sam Mendes and Chris Nolan, and like in terms of a career path and types of films.
In terms of Skyfall being kind of like The Dark Knight.
Yeah, and then also, Chris Nolan makes a war film centered around the concept of time, and then 1917 comes out, which is also a war film around the concept of time. It's just there's little elements. There's little elements of. I think Sam Mendes is heavily inspired. Put it that way.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Yeah, so I think this is the best looking Bond film by a country mile, and I just think it's refreshing. In a way that harkens back to a familiar sense. Yeah, sometimes it does go a little bit overboard, but I think it does get the series back on track in terms of a franchise. I cannot see Bond being the title that it is today, making the amount of money it makes today, if they carried on with the grittier stories where they were heading. Casino Royale is incredible, yeah, but it's also a one-off, and they haven't replicated it since. And Casino Royale was the closest attempt to, and I think it shows why that it wasn't going to work in the long run.
I think they possibly could have.
I mean, maybe.
We'll never know, but
yeah, we'll never know, because the Skyfall came out and it made the most money a Bond film's ever made. So they went, well, we're not doing that arty shit again.
yeah, exactly.
Which actually leads on to the approach they made for Spectre, and Spectre infamously sucks.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Like I said, I can't remember.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we'll go through it. I watched Spectre for the second time. I watched it when it first came out, and like you, I couldn't remember a fucking thing. Now, because I saw No Time to Die last night, I wanted to refresh myself on Spectre, because from the trailers, you're led to believe that it is pretty. It's not like it doesn't take place straight after or anything. But
I remember. It wasn't it like Bond has a brother who's Christoph Waltz or whatever.
Yeah, Bond has a. So basically, Christoph Waltz, otherwise known as Blofeld, who is supposed to be Bond's most. Like the biggest nemesis. He's the Joker to the Batman. Like he's the most iconic foe.
He's who Dr. Evil is based off from Austin Powers.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that they didn't make him this bald, weird dude with it.
Oh, by the way, mute me here because I'm eating chicken.
For fuck's sake. I like that they kind of went for a different look for Blofeld. That's kind of cool. But this movie is in a rush to go nowhere. Like this movie, it starts and straight away you're led with this stunning open long take, which is great and clearly is what Sam Mendes finished that long take and went, yeah, I'm going to do that for a whole movie. Bye. I'm not going to make No Time to Die. It starts with that and it's straight away. It's straight in with like a mystery. And that's how every good Bond film should start. Bond needs to be going across the globe with like fragments of a bullet or some shit, and he's like, "Who does this belong to?" And they're like, "A guy." If you go speak to a guy in Shanghai, he'll tell you. Bond goes to Shanghai, and the guy in Shanghai is like, "Go back to London and analyze this." And the guy that you were looking for was in the next room the whole time. And like that's what Bond does best. Just sends Bond on a wild fucking goose chase.
Yeah.
This movie does it, and I was very surprised at how quickly James Bond comes into contact with Blofeld. And Blofeld's just like, no games. I'm straight up your brother. I'm not your legal brother. I'm not your brother by blood. My dad raised you for a little bit. We didn't mention any of that in Skyfall because we went back to your childhood home at Skyfall, and it wasn't this place. I'm Christoph Waltz, and I'm your adopted brother. When my dad adopted you, he thought that you were great and thought that I was shit, and therefore I killed my dad and I hate you 30 years later.
What a terrible story.
It's such and I feel bad because fans wanted Spectre for so long, and there's a big rights issue, and there was a big rights war with Spectre. And the way abouts they kind of got it back was a little bit kind of underhanded. Like for example, the person who invented the character Spectre was not Ian Fleming, or the concept of Spectre. It was another guy, and that guy's family, and that guy was just like, I don't want to give him the rights to Spectre, and everyone's like, why? And he went, because I don't fucking want to, and that was that. Then he died, and his family were like, straight up, the rights to Spectre could make us all millionaires overnight.
Jesus.
Yeah, and then Sony came back, or MGM came back, and they were like, "Can we buy him now? He's dead." And they went, "Yeah, all right." and then the half-made film that they'd already made suddenly became a Spectre movie.
Wow.
Like they'd already written half the script, and then I can imagine a producer walked into the writing room one day and went, "It's a Spectre movie now," and they all went, "Are you taking the fucking piss?" Which is why Blofeld's barely in it, and it's a Spectre movie. Then he kind of so Bond saves the day very quickly. He blows up Spectre's big building, and he gives him a big scar, and he's like, yeah, he's definitely dead because he was at the heart of an explosion that leveled an entire building and facility. No way he could survive. But then like 2 scenes later, he's back. He's somehow in London, and he's like, now I've put your girlfriend in a building and she's gonna die. And Bond's like, come on, don't do that. And then he does, and then he's like, you got 3 minutes to save her. I could just blow her up now, but I'm not gonna do it. But I hate you, and anyway, bye. So then he tries to blow up Bond's girlfriend, and in a sequence that is definitely longer than 3 minutes, Bond saves his girlfriend. Then Blofeld's like, well, shit, that didn't work. Anyway, time to get in a helicopter and escape. And Bond with a pistol shoots down the helicopter. Yeah, with a pistol. The thing comes crashing down, and Ray Fiennes is like, go and arrest him, Bond. Go over and shoot him. Now, Bond, who is a man who is happy to murder hundreds of henchmen, hundreds of blokes, just getting a paycheck, walks up to Blofeld, and he's like, go on then, you fucking pussy, kill me. And Bond's like, nah. And then he just walks off. He's like, oh, by the way, this girl, I realize that the next film's the last one, so I'm probably going to need to have some kind of romantic lead going into the next one. So you didn't die, meaning that you probably now need to become the love of my life. And she's like, that makes complete sense. Let's ride off into the sunset together.
What a beautiful retelling. I think as one thing I do remember, and when I remember seeing this in the cinema at the time, I was thinking, fucking hell, that's a bit much. I think he kills someone, and then doesn't he go to the funeral and then immediately fuck that guy's widow?
Yes, he does.
I remember that, and I was like, Jesus,
Yeah.
even for you, Bond, this is a bit much.
God, I mean, they were not in a loving relationship, but he still goes there and fucks his wife, in a really extended and horny exposition scene. I might add as well.
Yeah, I remember how horny it was. Just
Yeah.
the
He's
Anyway,
there like,
yeah.
and where should I go? And she's like, oh my God, you got to go to France. Ugh. Like, and she's like, the whole time he's like going to kiss her and then faking it out. It feels like I shouldn't be watching that.
Yeah, I remember being very uncomfortable during that sequence.
Yeah.
Anyway, Spectre sounds bad. I can't wait to rewatch it. Would you like to give some final spoiler-free thoughts on No Time to Die?
Yeah, definitely. I went in with trying to be as open-minded as I possibly could, but a little bit of kind of hesitation because I didn't like Spectre. And at this point, it's kind of, it could have gone either way. There's been as many bad Bond films with Craig as there has been good. And I was like, oh, I hope it's fine. Bearing in mind, I am not a spring chicken anymore, and I used to go to midnight screenings all the time and be absolutely fine. I cannot handle that life anymore. But it was 4 a.m. or like 3:30 in the morning, and I was wide awake thinking about this movie. Like it's very thought provoking. It's a fitting end, is what I'll say. And I'll leave it there because it's, you know, it subverted my expectation, and go into it with an open mind and just have fun with it, because it's a long movie, but it justifies its runtime, and I think it's a very nice, like, well crafted farewell to this era of James Bond.
Well, there you are.
There you have it. Right, next week we're doing this.
Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
That's
It's
what if, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nathan with a mouthful of chicken. Halfway through this pod, you just stopped doing it, didn't you? You just went, I've got my chicken to eat now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like this episode, then we're going to be coming out with the What If episode next week, and we do we come up with new episodes every Friday at 10 a.m, unless I'm very poorly, but I should be over the worst of it now. You can also give this podcast 5 stars on Apple. So give it a little 5 stars if you liked it. It does go a long way in getting us out there, I'd imagine. I actually don't know about any of that statistic stuff. And also you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. What the fuck are you doing?
Just keep going. Don't worry about me.
You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Another Happy Pod, which is where you'll get the little post on Fridays at 10 a.m. that reminds you there's a new episode out. Or you could set your own reminders if you like, but you don't have to. It's fine. We can do that for you. You don't have to, like I said. Yeah. Say hi to Nathan's mum for me.
I will. All right. Bye.
Bye.